Hello everyone, we are here to analyze the essay 2022 paper. On the face of it, the paper seems to be easier than the 2021 paper but tougher than the 2020 paper. Let us take one question, that is essay number 4, to see how you have to approach it in the examination hall. So the essay topic is a ship in harbor is safe, but that is not what ship is for. So to give an easy explanation, the ship has to move forward. That is the very identity a ship has. If it just remains in the harbor, is it even fulfilling any task? So yeah, let's move forward to a detailed analysis of the topic now. So for introduction, moderates extremist dichotomy is the best. In this, you have to show that moderates were behaving like a ship in harbor, which was accepting the domination under the British implicitly. But the extremists, on the other hand, were behaving like a ship moving in the progressive direction of Purna Swaraj. The extremists were also prodding the moderates to accept the exploitative nature of the British and move in the direction of Purna Swaraj. Then, as I have told you, that you have to see a peripheral part in the essay and the main part in the essay. So in this essay, the peripheral part is a ship in harbor is safe. This is the peripheral part. So we will deal with it first. So in this, you have to write some basic points, and not much of examples are needed here. So in this, you can write why ships are in harbor is safe, because in that way the ships do not have to deal with the wear and tear which is involved in the process of moving forward. The ships do not have to deal with the failures, no, because sometimes the ships are stuck in the midst, just like humans are stuck with their problems for long. And then the uncertainty, because when we are moving in ocean, we do not know from where the wind would be blowing. So yeah, when one moves forward, there may be many uncertainties surrounding us, and that's why ourselves, we want that we stay in the comfort zone, but moving out of the comfort zone is like a ship moving in the ocean and not the ship which is staying in the harbor. अब हम सेकेंड पार्ट देखेंगे. So in this you have to write why, when the ship is not moving, then it is not behaving like a ship. Because the example is that ship's identity is motion. That ship को आगे बढ़ना है, ship को तूफानों से लड़ना है. Ship's task is not to stay in the harbor. In the similar way, as humans, our motion of the life is progress. We have moved forward from hunting gathering to making quantum computers today. You can bring the concept of potentiality here, given by Aristotle, that every living thing in our world has some potential, and the goal is to reach that potential. As a human, we have to become the ideal ethical man. That is the potential we have. And if we are not achieving that, we are behaving like the ships in the harbor. Here you can use this quote. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference, by Robert Frost. So in this quote, it is showing that if ship is just staying in the harbor, that may be the normal method followed by many people, then it will not achieve any good end, because the less traveled one moving in the winds also would be fruitful at the end. सो अब हमने सेकेंड पार्ट को भी एक्सप्लेन कर दिया है कि अगर शिप हार्बर में ही रह जाती है तो शिप अपना टास्क, अपना रोल नहीं पूरा कर रही है जो उसका एक्चुअली रोल है. सो नाउ अब इसी चीज़ को वी हैव टू एक्सप्लेन थ्रू द एग्जाम्पल्स. सो in examples, first we will take the examples of individuals. So here you can take the example of MBA Chaiwala. In this, you have to show that he was not getting an apt job even after doing MBA. But he did not stay in the harbor of just MBA careers. He moved out of that harbor. He chose a very different path, which others may not choose, which others may be afraid of choosing. But today, because of choosing that very different path, moving into the winds, into the ocean, into an uncharted territory, he became such a reputed person just being by a tea seller. The other example is of Barack Obama. If he would have thought that no black man has been president of America yet, and let me not move out of the harbor, then what would have happened? We would have not get the first black president of America. Similarly, if we take the example on the country level, we have to take the example of Bangladesh. अगर बांग्लादेश वेस्ट पाकिस्तान के एक्सप्लॉयटेशन के खिलाफ खड़ा नहीं होता, if it would have accepted that exploitation, if Mujibur Rahman would not have stood against that, क्या होता कि आज we would not have got the fastest moving economy in the world. Give the dimension of science. If Christopher Columbus would have not stepped into a different path of finding the way to India, he would have thought कि कोई भी नहीं गया, let me also not charter into this different direction. What would have happened? We would have not, these Western civilization would not have been aware of the Eastern civilization. If we take example from the society, we have to mention the Nirbhaya parents. We have to mention the Unnao case victim, that even after exploitative behavior and constant threat to their life, if they would have not stood against the culprits, we would have not got the criminal amendment being done. So I'm opening few more dimensions. If we take history, we can mention the French Revolution. If the third estate would have remained in the harbor of exploitation, in the harbor of behaving in line with the royal assent, what would have happened? Then they would have not got the liberty they later got. If you have to mention from the ecological angle, the Chamoli woman standing against the sports manufacturers is the perfect example. They moved into an uncharted ocean where they were not knowing whether their neck would be chopped off, but they stood against it. They moved in a progressive direction and helped save the trees. And if we take the example of politics, we have a very good example of Arvind Kejriwal. If he would have thought that let me continue in this bureaucratic job itself and not stood against what he thinks is wrong, then we would have not got the developmental model which Delhi is being developed on right now. We would have not got the Anna Hazare's fight against corruption movement. So these much examples are well enough to prove the statement that yes, the statement is very right, that if ship stays in the harbor, that is not what ship is meant to be in the first place. But as I've always said, the antithesis in the essay is also very important, and I think most people will skip this and they will not get marks also, because the evaluators want to see how you are able to move into the other direction also. So in this essay particularly, you can devote maybe even 2 or even 3 pages to the antithesis. So the first antithesis would be that sometimes ships have to stay in the harbor because they have to rejuvenate themselves, because they have to rethink on the strategies and they have to recreate the idle patterns. No? And so in this you can give some examples that the example of Gandhi's struggle strategy, struggle to struggle. Then the second antithesis. The second antithesis is that in the name of moving ahead, we cannot go for mindless commotion. We do not have to become the herd of ships. Rather, we can stay in our harbor. We can move when we are capable enough to move, or when we are required to move. We do not have to become the herd of sheep. Just because others are doing something, that does not mean we have to move also in the ocean. You can give example of supporting Nazi regime when in the 1930s. Then because everyone is supporting, that does not mean that you also have to support the regime. Then the third antithesis is that even if we are moving forward ahead, we should move by right means. We cannot choose wrong means. If the ship is moving by paying to the corrupt officials and moving through the wrong routes, which it is not meant to be moved legally, then it is not right. Then the ship can stay in harbor, wait for the legal channels. In this, you can give example of Taliban. That yes, they wanted to save Afghanistan from the Western hegemony, but that was not right to become terrorists and involve in the exploitative steps towards women, children, and all others. Then the fourth antithesis is that even if you are moving, you have to move in a ethically reasonable direction. You can give example of Vijay Mallya here. He moved in the opposite direction. He was moving forward. No, he was taking his empire ahead, but he was doing disservice to the country. He was doing financial frauds. I feel these four antitheses would make your essay look very different from the essays which others will write, which would be just like some examples. But here we have some very deep arguments from the other side also. And as I've said, that very important part of essay is flow. And in this essay, right, we have been following a logical flow, and now after the antithesis are directly, because we have last point we have talked is reasonably ethical end. Now we have came to the way forward. Here you can talk of emotional intelligence, you can talk of ethical education that students should get from the day one of the school, that in which directions they have to move their ships in which directions they have to move, so that they are an asset rather than a liability on our country. So all this you have to bring the emotional intelligence, the motivation, and every other thing. And this I have already told you in the analysis video, that most essays would end on this only, that is the emotional intelligence and the motivation. So I have told one quote in the essay video, and that was, the only journey is the one within. And I have told you that this quote only could be used multiple times in different essays if we are able to use it. So see, in the conclusion I will use this quote only. So you have to show that our ships depend on how we are moving our journey in the inside rather than outside. If we are logical, reasonable, and ethical inside ourselves, our ship will not stay on the harbor of exploitation, on the harbor of misery. Our ship will move in the ocean of prosperity, ocean of happiness, ocean of service to others. So see how logically this quote has also been related to this topic. And on this note, if you end your essay, it would give a very fulfilling feeling to the checker also, that everything ends on the self, and but Everything is ending on the self, but for the humanity, because we are talking of the ocean of prosperity, ocean of service to the country. So this was the end of the video. We will do one more or maybe two essay topics. If you want me to do more such topics, please comment in the box which topics you want me to do. If you like the video, you can subscribe the channel, because I would talk on these papers of the UPSC, which UPSC is going to conduct in this week. All the best. Bye.